Alright, welcome to the Sonic the Hedgehog deck check. Here, Sonic the Hedgehog is a 1 blue, red, and white 2/4 legendary creature Hedgehog warrior with haste and gotta go fast. Whenever Sonic the Hedgehog attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with flash or haste. And whenever a creature you control with flash or haste is dealt damage, create a tapped treasure token. So, this is truly Sonic the Hedgehog made into a Magic the Gathering card, right? It's all about, like, this 2/4 Hedgehog doesn't really do that much damage, right? But over time, as he keeps on hitting you over and over and over, the more times you give him to attack, the stronger he and the rest of his friend gets before he just absolutely just runs you over. So the deck clearly has a lot to do with creatures that have haste or flash. So naturally, we wanted to find creatures that have haste as a natural ability. Arthur, Marigold Knight, he has haste on top of being able to put creatures into play when he attacks, right? Eowyn is haste and also has removal built right on her. Fear of Being Haunted has haste, and if you use this card to attack someone who only has their commander out, their commander is going to be forced to block a 5/3 if you swing with Sonic, right? So every single haste card here has more than just haste. It's haste with something else. Haste with get treasures, haste with impulse draw, haste with giving your board first strike and trample until end of turn, haste and draw a card. All of these cards have an output on top of just simply having haste. Even Monastery Swiftspear ends up becoming really, really strong by the end of the game. And since Sonic also cares about flash creatures, we wanted to make sure that we had really good flash creatures, right? And what we decided to do in this deck, instead of doing the normal Jeskai package of having counter spells and Path to Exiles and the normal Jeskai removal package, because we wanted to focus on creatures that had flash, we figured let's just make sure our creatures are basically counter spells in their own right? So Aboleth Spawn, this just makes all of our opponents' ETB triggers probably something that hurts them in response. Aven Interrupter is more or less a counterspell. All we need to do is stop someone's board wipe, even if it's just for one turn, so that we can get that extra damage in there that they weren't expecting us to get because they thought our whole board would be wiped, right? Gandalf the White doubles our ETB triggers if it's involving a legendary creature. Aven Mind Sensor disallows our opponents from tutoring into their deck, right? This isn't a full-on stacks deck, but by utilizing blue-white cards that have flash, like Venser, Shaper Savant, and Tishana's Tidebinder, we get to control the board state while still making creatures that get stronger every single time our commander attacks. That is the value of this deck that allows us to not really have to stuff a bunch of counterspells in here, while still letting us stuff a bunch of counterspells in here. We have a couple cards in here that enable haste, so like Chroma's Memorial, Anger, Enduring Courage, Urbras the Hidden, and the magnum opus here, Uncivil Unrest. We can give our non-token creatures haste, right? And since most of our creatures already have haste, it's really the flash creatures that are going to get haste, but they'll have haste until the turn, which is fine. And then any of our creatures with +1/+1 counters on them, which will be every single creature in the deck because Sonic will give them +1/+1 counters some way, somehow, are going to deal double damage to any permanents or players, right? So Uncivil Unrest, Frostcliff Siege, these are things that give haste to things that don't have haste, which is a very small percentage of the deck, but it means that we get to play hasted spells on our turn, and we can play flash spells on our turn as well if we really need to, and we're not losing that much because we're still able to swing immediately and deal damage. In terms of haste lords, we also have flash lords. We don't have too many of them, right? But Leyline of Anticipation, if we can put this card into play early game, then that's even better for us. Teferi, Mage of Zalfir, he himself has flash and makes our opponents play at sorcery speed, while all of the creatures we have flash as well. And then Vidalcan Ori, again, just a 4-mana artifact that just says, hey, everything that we do has flash. The flash doesn't stay on the card, right? The cards that we play all have either haste or flash. That's how they're going to make sure that Sonic gives them a +1/+1 counter. Casting things at flash speed, or as if they had flash, doesn't give them the card ability of flash, so remember that, right? Leyline of Anticipation won't just make your Sonic deck turn on, but it does allow us to play on our opponent's turn all throughout the game. Draw power is going to be really big and important in this deck because since we're not running a lot of instants and sorceries, we have to draw somehow. And I figure since we have so many creatures in the deck, the draw power might as well come from creatures, right? So, Bident of Thassa, Coastal Piracy, Polywog Prodigy, Enduring Curiosity, a card that has flash and says whenever we deal damage with a creature, which we're going to find a way to do it. We have constantly ramping creatures with flash, and usually a lot of flying with the flash creatures or haste. We're going to deal damage and draw a bunch of cards. And then Danny Pink, of course, is a very special card that just says, hey, attack with your commander. Your entire board state just draws you an entire round of cards. So yeah, we're sticking the draw power to stay creature based. And then the biggest aspect of Sonic's abilities, because Jeskai isn't really good at ramping until now. The third ability on Sonic is whenever a creature you control with flash or haste is dealt damage, right? So whenever any of your friends or Sonic runs into an enemy and starts flickering and he drops all of his rings everywhere, we get tapped treasure tokens, right? I didn't put any like Amulet of Vigor in here so we can necessarily like go infinite immediately. As soon as Sonic like comes out, it's going to be something that ramps up over time, much like Sonic himself. But cards like Caltrops, Cinderclasm, Fiery Confluence, the brand new Fire Magic, or especially Pyrohemia, allows us to deal 1 damage to the entire board, every creature, just for the cost of a 1, or whenever we attack. Those creatures ideally won't die. They'll get a +1/+1 counter when they swing with Sonic, especially in the case of Caltrops here, but they will take damage before our opponents even choose to block. So then we do get a bunch of tapped treasures that we can use next turn to rebuild our board, keep up mana so that we can have flash spells in order to counter everything our opponents do, stuff like that. So Sonic by himself has a built-in ramp package that we want to make sure that we take a little bit of advantage of, but it's not going to be the only thing the deck does. The main thing that this deck does is have hasted creatures that attack forever and ever and ever until our opponents go down. We have the regular Jeskai mana ramp package in here. There's not going to be too much special with the artifacts in this case, and then protection spells. We have at least 6 in here. All we need to do is make sure that our board stays alive, right? So 1 flawless maneuver can save us the game because it allows us to have a board state that keeps getting bigger with +1/+ encounters that we don't have to rebuild from. Teferi's Protection, yeah, it's a, bracket 3 card, but it just keeps us alive a little bit longer. Clever Concealment, Boros Charm, Akroma's Will just allows us to attack in unblockable, really good, or even a Flare of Fortitude. And then the last section that we wanted to go over, Infinite Win Cons. There should always be a break glass in case of game just really not going our way. So we do have Kiki Jiki or Jolly Balloon Man to go infinite with Zealous Conscripts or Combat Celebrant, right? So we do have infinite win cons ways just to give us a giant insurmountable board state with haste, which our commander will love, and then we just kind of pile in on our opponents and win that way. It's not the goal of the deck. We're not tutoring up any of these pieces, but it is good to know that there is, if your opponent has just a wall that's too big to get through, no matter how much you're swinging at them with your hasted creatures, there is going to be a way for you to get out of that. And with that, that is the Sonic the Hedgehog deck. This is the first day he's out, so we're going to need to do some playtesting on this. If anyone wants to use this deck, be sure to check out moxfield.com. The link is below in the description, and of course in the Discord where we'll have further discussion on this deck. But I think that this Sonic is really cool. I love that you're able to play with all 3 of his friends, Miles, Knuckles, and Rose. We didn't get to put a lot of support in the deck for any of these characters. Miles doesn't have any vehicles in here. Knuckles doesn't get a lot of treasure, kindred things, and Amy doesn't get any equipment, but all of them still work with Sonic himself, one way or another, and that's really what matters. They can have their own decks if they wanted to have equipment and vehicles. And that's it for us. Thank you very much for checking out this Sonic deck, and be sure to tell me below how you built your Sonic the Hedgehog deck, and if it was super different from mine.